Welcome to Dr. Akmal Makhdum's YouTube channel. He is a psychiatrist, author, and social commentator. Continuing on with Forgotten Philosophies, looking at ancient philosophers. Previously, we looked at Socrates, touching upon Plato. Now, let's continue with Plato. We left off in the last video about talking about the Republic. What would you like to add to that conversation?
Plato talked about the importance of beauty, and he talked about the value of social reform, social configuration. And one of the most important aspects that it emanates from all this is his concept of forms. What he describes forms as some predetermined, uh, pre existing ideal states of things. For example, if there is justice, there is a form of an ideal justice. If there is courage, there is a form of ideal courage. If there is a statue, that has an ideal form. So the form is something that is transcendental, okay? And what he suggests is that we should always be striving to achieve those. Now, it is a metaphysical discussion that the forms are there before one is born, and before birth one is in a state of being where one is able to see these forms and know these forms, and once one is born and becomes mortal and comes into existence, then he has to follow and try to achieve those forms and try to achieve life in such a way and construct life in such a way that those ideal forms are made. Now, while he says that, at the same time, there is the construct of a social um, fabric of society, which practically in his own lifetime he sees being destroyed by Sparta, Athens being defeated, Athens then being ruled by the 30 tyrants, which are imposed by Sparta, very ruthless. And then there is democracy that comes back. That causes the execution of his mentor and his beloved teacher, Socrates. And then he starts to write about how society should be. Now, there is this historical evidence, obviously, that he did travel for some time, and there is the mention that he traveled to Persia as well. So there is this, he comes back and then he gives his work in which he gives the concept of an ideal state. And in that ideal state, what he says is that it should be run by philosopher kings. He is not a favored person or a favorite of or favors democracy. He does not believe in democracy. What he believes is that people vote without knowledge. He did not like people being selected by lot, by chance, and he also did not believe that people had the wherewithal in terms of their wisdom that they could uh, select the right people. So what he believed was that there needed to be three structures, three roles in society: the role of the producers, the role of the military, and the role of the rulers. And the rulers should be the ones with all the wisdom and knowledge, and they should be philosophers. They should be the guardians, and the king should be a philosopher king. And the guardians needed to construct society in such a manner that it became enlightened, it became more um, wise, and had more fulfillment. Although he believed in individual fulfillment, he also believed in social fulfillment. And what he believed was that unless there is social fulfillment for everybody, the individual cannot have social fulfillment. Now, there is another little problem that people have picked up, and Bertrand Russell, demolished Plato in this regard, that he talks of the noble lie. By that, what he means is that the guardians should create a form of a faith, and that faith should allocate roles, that the rulers and the guardians made of gold, the militarymen made of silver, and the other of iron and copper, um, the workers and the producers. Now that is akin to the caste system that you see in the Southern Aryan religion. So there it could be that during his travels he traveled to Persia and other places, and he picked up those strands and came back to Athens and presented that. But when you criticize this structure of state, the noble lie is the is something that can be exploited and has been exploited. The noble lie is actually the game for the propagandist. The noble lie gives you a religion or a faith that says that you are born to rule, and you are born to serve, and you are born to fight. And it is because this is your destiny. It is because this is your faith, and it is that should be your fate as well. Now, that of course has been exploited by throughout history by the powerful of bringing in such noble lies to societies all across the world, whether it is for king and country, whether it is for nationhood, for tribe, for religion, for whatever. This noble lie actually then creates where you become part um, of a large gathering in which you are a nobody, you are a nothing, you are controlled by that. So you see two different strands. On the one hand, he says, think more, have self fulfillment, look at the ideal nature of things, the forms, the ideal things, the ideals of beauty, ideals of knowledge, ideals of courage. On the one hand, he talks of the greatness of Socrates, of challenging, of constantly questioning everything that you are standing for at a particular time. And on the other hand, he comes up with rather a draconian, an artificial, a false structure which is based on a lie, but because he calls it a noble lie. But at the same time, what he also, when, so that's where the contradiction occurs. And that's where, various philosophers and statesmen have used and abused it or criticized it and or followed it, is that on the one hand he is being the mouthpiece of Socrates, saying everything must be questioned, you must define everything, you must pursue everything. But on the other hand, what happens is that what he also does is that, in view of what is happening to his state, in view of what has happened by the ignorance and lack of wisdom of his Athenian citizens, he sees the destruction of his country, and then he wants his state to be mentally superior, but something like the Spartans who had conquered Athens. So Spartans, the military, force, which is run like a machine, he wants that, but at the same time, he wants it to have a soul. He wants it to have a religion, although it may be a false religion. It is a religion created just to create harmony and enlightenment. But the thing is that anything which is based on a lie, how it can give real enlightenment is the question that people have asked. So, what we find in Plato is a world of philosophy. And that is why people say that he is really the father of philosophy, because on the one hand, he talks of mankind, individual, love of beauty, love of questioning oneself, having a sense of fulfillment, having a sense of knowledge, courage, wisdom, as spoken by Socrates. And on the other hand, he then wants to have a social structure which is very organized, very regimented, but run by philosophers.
Maybe it's just his way of being a philosopher and putting all the different options out there and leaving it to people to use their minds.
Yes, so yeah, that could be it, and this is what he does, and this is what exactly he follows by actually never saying anything himself, but always in a dialogue, in a dialogue with Socrates.
So maybe that's an extension of Socrates' approach of not writing anything down, like you said in the previous video. It becomes very immobile. It doesn't grow. It's stagnant.
Yeah, but what happens is that these are the structure of the republic and the structure of the forms, the ideal archetypes. These are the two things that he does say on his own, of his own volition and of his own intellect. These are the creations that he presents. The rest are all dialogues, and everything moves. What is the value of being noble or virtuous? Or should one be only apparently virtuous and not in reality virtuous? Now, the other thing that is very interesting is there is this allegory of the cave. And this is an excellent description of how human beings work and how human beings are influenced. In the allegory of the cave, he describes a set of prisoners which are shackled and chained, looking at a wall. Behind the wall is fire, and there are these images which are being projected behind them on a platform, and they see those images on the wall. And for them, that is reality. And for them, that is what they see. And then there are whispers alongside. Those who are managing those prisoners are also whispering. So for them, these shadows on the wall are the reality, and those whispers are part of that associated with reality. One of them is then turned, and he is turned backwards, and then he sees everything. And he sees a tunnel or a staircase that goes out. So he is unshackled, and he goes out. And he goes out outside, and he sees that all that he had been believing to be true was all false. And actually, the reality is totally different. So what happens is that he looks at this and he feels a duty to go and inform the others that they are living in a life of lies. So he goes back, he tries to tell those people. They are not happy because they declared him a heretic, a blasphemer, and a rebel, and they kill him.
Oh no.
So the thing is that this is also something that when he talks of building that faith by the guardians, that is the kind of allegory that is used on humanity. And when you look at it, isn't it sometimes that you feel that you are that captive, shackled, looking at the wall, looking at the shadows, and being shown the reality, which is actually just the shadows, and the reality is out there. So, what we see in Plato is a world of various philosophical aspects, the metaphysics and the immortality of the soul in a way, because that's what Socrates believed in. And this is what Plato believes in when he actually says that before birth, you know what courage is, you know what the ideal form is of wisdom and beauty. And then when you come into existence, you look at these and you want to achieve that. So, what we see is that Plato brings the whole thing from up there down to earth.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. If you like this video, subscribe, share, and like. If you have any comments, leave them below. Thank you so much.